So that brings us to the Declaration of Independence. What led specifically to its adoption?
Well, the Declaration was the culmination of a series of events and a growing belief that the colonies were no longer British subjects. I've mentioned Garry Wills before, his comment that the revolution occurred in fact well before it occurred in theory. Thomas Jefferson had published a document called Summary View of the Rights of British in America in 1774 that very succinctly stated the argument that it was untenable for the colonies to remain a part of the British Empire. The historian Pauline Maier has discovered at least 90 assertions of independence that issued between April and July of 1776 by various counties, towns, and entire colonies before the Second Continental Congress issued the call to draft the document that represented the United Colonies.
So in 10 years, we will have lived with the Declaration of Independence for 250 years. After all this time, is there anything more to be said about it, or do Americans really know it quite well at this point?
The Declaration of Independence, in my view, is a document that deserves to be read and reread, and every time we reread it, we need to read it as though it is for the first time. The Declaration consists of essentially 5 parts. Part 1 is the introduction that describes why the colonies believe they are impelled, in their word, to declare independence. Part 2 is the preamble. It states the principles on which the new governments that will be created after independence will be based. For the first time in history, the principles of human equality, inalienable rights, and popular sovereignty will be the bedrock on which new governments will be built if independence succeeds. Part 3 is the list of grievances that justify independence. The document is written in the form of a legal writ or a formal order to the Crown and the world. The proof of the legitimacy of the revolution is in the facts. The claim is that the Crown and the crowned in Parliament have violated the rights of the colonists as Englishmen. Are those facts true? The Declaration submits them to a candid world for judgment. Part 4 of the Declaration is the denunciation of the colonists' British brethren, despite the colonists' repeated pleas for justice. And Part 5 is the conclusion, and this conclusion is critically important for understanding what has to come next. The representatives of the United Colonies declare that they are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. Each free and independent state is essentially a new nation, with full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. So each state will have to establish its own form of governance based on the principles announced in the preamble. Turns out each state also is going to go ahead and coin its own money, conclude its own alliances, contract its own trade policies, and in many instances set up barriers against the other independent states or former colonies in order to protect their own economic, political, and religious independence. Now, clearly, these newly independent states, or nations if you will have to figure out how to cooperate with one another enough to win the Revolutionary War. Their first attempt was the Articles of Confederation, a league of what is called friendship among the states, under which each state retained its independence as a sovereign nation. The last paragraph of the Declaration provides the basis for understanding one of the most significant challenges confronting the drafters of the United States Constitution in 1787. That convention was a meeting of the representatives of 12 sovereign states. It would have been 13 if Rhode Island had agreed to attend. It was not a convention of delegates representing the American people as people. It's out of this political fact of state sovereignty and representation of states at the convention that America's unique system of federalism was born.